What is Mundaun? Mundaun is literally a municipality in the district of Soselva in the canton of Graubünden, Switzerland. It's also a recent indie game made by a single developer studio with a wonderful voice cast and a unique and gorgeous art style that enthralled me for all three of my around 4 hour playthroughs. Its second definition is too small to fully encompass what I feel about this beautiful musing on loss, the death of family members, returning home, complicated emotions about flawed people after they die, and confronting the harm done by your ancestors and how it affects you and others today. Mundaun's visuals are a beautiful and unique use of 2D textures projected onto 3D assets. By creating all of the visuals from pencil drawings, Michel Ziegler uses manipulation of space, the emotional weight of objects and sentiment, phenomenal voice acting and translation, to portray an extremely intimate and horrific tale that might be one of the strongest examples of the art form of video games, and you should go play it before you watch this video. You can even pet a goat.
This game has a very important thing you can do. Do you want to know what that is, chat?
Hey, ce fastică?
You can pet the goat. From here on, there are spoilers. I highly recommend playing the game before you watch this video. Content warning. Discussions of death, homicide, trauma, and war. Trigger warning. Visuals of a man hanging by the neck. Flesh burning. You play as Kuldeen, a young man who recently received a letter from his hometown's preacher telling him that his grandfather had passed away in a barn fire. You read this letter on the bus ride back up to Mundaun. This opening section sets its tone and visual style perfectly. The next section is a micro version of the entire game that introduces each element that will be expanded upon further. Getting out of the bus, you approach the site of your grandfather's death. Looking around the barn, which is rubble, and the nearby hill, you eventually stumble upon a painting of the barn on fire that seems to be alive. If you approach, you manage to walk back through time to the night it happened. How can you walk into paintings to time travel? Well, in the words of my friend LadyKnightTheBrave, it's Tuesday, don't worry about it. Before you, a strange painter is creating the time-traveling painting. You approach the barn, only to be grabbed by a friend of your grandfather's, demanding the fiend release you, and the strange, otherworldly old man obliging by grabbing your arm and in the process burning it, marking you. You awake back in the present, but now inside the inaccessible area of the barn. Your grandfather's body is still there, with his lucky pipe. You collect it as a memento of the man, and wonder what Father Jeremias buried if it was not Florine. Your burnt sausage hands magically alter your perception of the space and allows you to exit, because it's Tuesday. The harm of the past directly affects you, and in so doing, changes your awareness of the material spaces around you. You walk into the main village space, and eventually to your grandfather's house, finding a strange, faded photo of yourself on the door of the house, which you use to track upgrades. Inside the house, searching around, you may find some objects helpful for your journey. You can then set out to explore the village, discovering various memories of Kuldeen. After wandering, you eventually see a girl on a hill near the chapel, which is locked along with the cemetery. She seems to adjust the flow of time, affecting the sun's position, before throwing a paper airplane, which when collected, provides a hint for the next puzzle. After solving the puzzle, you find your grandfather's grave is empty. Going to confront Jeremias, the priest, for his lies, you inadvertently bring the devil to the house of God. He thanks you for doing something. When the strange nightmare sequence ends, you have an uncomfortably odd conversation with Jeremias, who tells you to sleep in your grandfather's house that night, using his baptismal candle as remembrance. You leave the chapel. Now there's hay monsters outside. Sneaking past them to the house, you then sleep with a werkgeschil on your chest to fend off evil spirits as your grandfather used to, and place his candle for additional protection. You awake and see the girl from the day before through a window. She runs from a hay monster up the hill. Leaving the house, you follow one of her goats to her and find she has made a paper boat, which upon unfurling is a drawing of the past. Once more, Alice, you head through the looking glass. This time all the way back to the war. Your grandfather, several men you don't recognize yet, and Jeremias are besieged by an army coming up the mountain towards them. Florine, your grandfather, tells his fellow soldier his wife is with child, but that doesn't seem to matter now, as none of them will survive. Then the devil appears, offering a potential salvation for the small group of soldiers. You return from the past into a corrupted form of the chapel where you collect the head of a goat. Exiting using your burnt hands, reality-warping powers, you find the sky is raining rocks and the trees and grass are burnt. You take shelter in the graveyard, finding Jeremias praying. You tell him of the goat's head, learning that it is the head of Corporal Walter's prized goat, and that you need to bring supplies if you want to speak with Walter about it. So, off you go, eventually getting the Movil and driving up the mountain with the girl, the niece of Walter, who is nonverbal, and her name is Florina. You get a dead end and an encounter with the devil once more. After this interaction, you finish the drive alone, and it is now nighttime. You deposit the hay, follow the body of Alegria, the talking goat head, in your backpack, discovering Alegria needs water when she bleats at you, and go find a well. Upon nourishing her, she tells you about how she was sacrificed and that it was by your grandfather. You then go to sleep in the artist's house. Upon waking, you can head upstairs, where you will find a painting of a painter and a removed section of the bridge in a nearby painting. Fixing that painting repairs the real bridge. When you complete this, you turn to find Giovanni Serpentini himself and his portrait empty. He says some creepy shit and implies that he knows the devil gave you some gift. You continue up the mountain, encountering the beekeepers. These invincible irritation machines are best hidden from, but if that fails, just run to a building with a door that closes. After you collect some honey, you contact Walter in order to provide him some mutual aid. Walter tells you to sleep for now and then come to the bunker. You sneak past soldiers, only visible through the reflections and the light of their long-lost lanterns, and enter the bunker, acquiring your grandfather's lantern. You then literally walk in your grandfather's footsteps, using his lantern to see little ghosts he left behind. You reach Walter, speak with him briefly, learning that it was your grandfather who harmed Alegria, and his idea to make the deal. You give Florina the honey, and she gives you the method to go get into a secret room, where you have another journey through the looking glass of art, that provides a vision of the contract being signed, and the enemy being destroyed by an avalanche. You are then returned to the bunker, where you need to go to the bathroom, fight past some hay, and go to bed. You wake up and talk to Walter, who explains that the devil should be trapped in the mountain, and that the pass there is blocked, but you can use a cannon to open it, and that you should atone for your grandfather's sins by bringing peace to Alegria. You shoot away the blockage, sneak past the beekeepers, and make it to Florina and the goats. You speak to Alegria and agree to take her head to the cave in the mountain. Then you go and retrieve your grandfather's rifle from his attic and head up the mountain. Once up there, you reactivate the ski lift by giving the ski man a roll of toilet paper, and when you take the ski lift up for a bit, the devil stops you and undoes his half of that bargain, unveiling the soldiers who had been buried, now undead, and after you. You make it to the bridge and learn that H.R. Serpentini is the only one with the passcode to get through. H.R. was one of the soldiers, a writer, and the father of Giovanni. Using Alegria's magic bell, you find Serpentini in the snow and assist him after having a run-in with a Yeti-like monster. Serpentini gives you the code before being dragged into the snow. You solve the puzzle and get into the mountain running from the stone hail we saw earlier. Entering, you use magic hand powers to reopen the cave, and then you resurrect Alegria, literally undoing the harm your grandfather did. You then see what happened in the past by looking into Alegria's eye, seeing through her perspective.
Cesque, inua is mia beia.
Tenornos convegno portainus a ti nolma non batejada.
Na. Ci dessa fil con enorme da bestia.
You apologize for your grandfather's actions, and Alegria forgives you and thanks you for bringing her peace and making her whole again. You go further into the cave, using the lantern to illuminate the reflection of the devil's house. You enter and experience a sort of baptism by fire and water, eventually finding out that the contract is not there, and that the devil has been using Giovanni Serpentini as his servant. Giovanni, who followed you, knocks you out, reveals what he's been doing, that he was the one who killed your grandfather. You eventually escape, and as you do, learn that Florina is captured by the devil, and begin a hurried chase back down the mountain to save her. Here is where the story diverges based on two choices, and where my recap will end for now. I will discuss what I can about the first theme without the major spoilers, and then explain the endings and how I think they relate to that theme and the overall message of the game.
The hand, much like many of the supernatural elements in the game, seem to be, at first, like fun gimmicks. But they actually hold a huge amount of emotional weight and importance to the themes. That's right, it's Wednesday. You should have worried about it. The hand in many ways represents how harm in the past reverberates onwards for generations. It's bestowed when you travel back in time at the start of the game because of your connection to your grandfather, and it's the key that allows you to change things. It's what gives you access to learning your grandfather's fate, to getting Allegria's head. It's what allows you to put Allegria back together and access the Devil's House to attempt to find his contract with your grandfather. The path to genuinely helping those harmed by your grandfather is difficult, literally and figuratively winding and long, but it's also about undoing the harm done to your grandfather and the others who made the deal. It takes you to the very heart of Mundaun and requires enduring great pain and hardship, unlike the much easier path of leaving others to their fates, or even hurting them for your own gain. Every goal is in the pursuit of either aiding others, undoing harm that's already been done, or preventing harm from being done. You act like a detective tracking down what happened in the past, not with the purpose to mete out some punishment, but so you can learn what you need to repair the people, including yourself, and the place you are in. Because you were affected by the past harmful actions of your grandfather, tainted by it literally after being marked by the devil for being Florin, the traitor and oathbreaker's grandson, Codeine, by extension you, feel a deep duty to change things, and, as Giovanni says, it's up to us, sons and grandsons, to make this wrong right. However, Giovanni's understanding is fundamentally flawed. Instead of working against the source of harm, he serves to spread it. He puts on a veil of acting nobly while constantly doing harm for his own gain. He helped me, so I helped him. Instead of actually fixing the damage and helping the victims, he instead seeks to punish. He kills your grandfather for breaking his contract with the Master. He attacks you several times. He speaks of justice but only does harm. Up until the endings, Codeine and Giovanni act as foils in their actions, showing punitive behaviors and reformative ones. And as such, the endings let you choose. Do you continue on Codeine's path, or do you become like Giovanni?
There are two defining choices and a variety of consequences that arise from these. Upon getting down the mountain to the artist's shack, where the painting in the barn is held, you find Corporal Walter, who tells you, "Go upstairs. You'll discover that I'm not cut out for the fine arts, but I did my best." Walking upstairs, you find a stick figure drawn to be hanging from the bridge, and Giovanni's words from earlier come to mind. What comes first, the picture or the subject it depicts? As you look out the window to see that it is Giovanni who is hanging, heading outside, you are given a choice. Punish him, or stop the cycle of harm, sparing his life to destroy the painting and save Florina. If you choose to let him drop to his death, then your hand is worsened. Your connection to the devil is strengthened by your act of punishment. You find the key to the cellar on his body, allowing you to destroy the painting, saving your grandfather from limbo, and then make it down the rest of the way. You get a cross from the cowardly priest Jeremias. Your hand, now empowered, burns all enemies in hay that dares to get near you. You confront the devil. When the cross is useless, you use your lantern to push the fiend back long enough for Florina to teleport you back through time to the fateful night where you make your second decision. Stop the deal from happening, thus undoing all of the harm, but potentially dooming them and the valley to the encroaching soldiers, or letting your grandfather sign and repeating the cycle. You allow events to transpire as they originally did. You see the destruction of the forces, and awake in your grandfather's bed. Your hand is still hurting. You go to the church, discovering it has been destroyed. Speaking with Jeremias, he says they found you and that Florina seems unscathed. But when you talk to Walter, he says she has changed and he can't explain how. At the funeral, Florina speaks and is wearing a specific hat you may recognize, indicating that the devil has taken her soul as the price for the contract, as she is nonverbal when not possessed. You bury your grandfather and leave Mundaun, your hands still marked by the devil as a souvenir of your time there. You saved yourself, but at the cost of everyone else. You stop the signing of the deal and discover it was a clever ruse. Waking up in your grandfather's bed, you head to the church, which has been repaired. Jeremias remembers nothing of what transpired. You speak with him and then speak with Walter, who also remembers nothing. You attend your grandfather's funeral, choose whether to say some words, and then speak with each of them. Florina is wearing the hat and speaks, indicating that the devil got her soul despite you not allowing the contract to be signed. You attempt to leave Mundaun and die in an avalanche. If you choose to spare him, he helps you to destroy the painting, giving you the key to the cellar where you slash it with a crystal, saving your grandfather from the curse. Giovanni hurts no one else, and your hand is fully healed. You have undone that connection to the devil by refusing the draw to harm others for your own purposes. You rush the rest of the way down Mundaun, receiving a cross from the cowardly priest Jeremias, fighting through the creatures of hay, and finally confronting him, the master, the trickster, the deal-maker, the devil. After the trinket of the church is useless, it's your grandfather's guiding light, his lantern, that helps you push the devil back long enough for Florina to teleport you back to the night of the deal, where you make the second choice. Stop the deal from happening, thus undoing all of the harm, but potentially dooming them to the ambush, or letting your grandfather sign and repeating the cycle. If you allow the contract to be signed, you see the destruction of the forces. You wake up in your grandfather's bed, head to the church, which you discover is destroyed. Speak with Jeremias, who explains that they found you in the ruins and that Florina seems okay. You then attend the funeral, where Florina speaks. If you have paid attention in the other endings, you know that the devil has claimed the girl's soul as recompense for the contract, because Florina is nonverbal, and it could only be the devil who would change that. This game really says, disabled people are who we are, and that's not evil, but changing us against our will is. You then leave Mundaun back to the city below. You saved yourself, but at the cost of Florina's soul. If you choose to stop the harm, to not allow the contract to be signed, you find that the soldiers are in fact a ruse, and nothing else. A clever trick to try and get a soul. The scene fades, and you wake in your grandfather's house. Heading to the church, you find the priest remembers none of the previous events, and believes you just got there. He also explains your grandpa died peaceful in his sleep, and that it's a blessing to go like that. You, to his shock, return his cross, which he says never leaves me. You then go to the barn, finding it restored and unharmed, and Walter there, who acknowledges your grandfather was not a saint, but he's still there for the funeral. You then attend your grandfather's funeral, and choose if you deliver a final message, say goodbye to each of them. Florina is herself again, and finally, you attempt to leave Mundaun, only to die in the avalanche you delayed through your actions.
No matter what, someone ends up harmed by the end of Mundaun. So the question is, what do you value as a person? What do you see as morally correct? Even if the game seems to lean towards the endings where you help others at the cost of yourself, it never tells you that's a good or bad ending. It deeply subverts the expectation of good or bad endings and easy answers in games. There's no easy answer. These choices are not small or arbitrary. They are the conclusion of everything the game has been examining about selfishness versus communal care of others. It lets you come to your own conclusion. Do you punish others, or do you undo what harm you can, even at the cost of harming yourself? Or more simply, what do you value most? To me, as a collection, the endings tell us that in the mind of the game, there are no good results. And all you can really do is your best to undo and prevent what harm you can when given the opportunity. That sometimes the noble thing ends up hurting you, but that it's still worth pursuing for the betterment of your community. That no justice comes from more harm, only more harm, but that you should also fight to stop those who are doing harm. Throughout the game, you can find objects, photos, and places that prompt Kildine to recount memories. When you approach photos, your vision narrows, and you hear the noises that it reminds Kildine of. Many of these memories are tinged by the bittersweet aspect of remembering them in relation to those who passed away. When you arrive in Mundaun, Goldeen says, "My grandfather's barn was up the hill." That moment of realization, the sudden shocking memory of the recent and present, is one I think all of us who have lost someone know. That moment when you remember what was there is now gone. This solid, constant piece of reality from your childhood eroded away. You can't go sit in the barn. It doesn't exist anymore. And that moment is as much, if not more, about his grandfather than it is the barn. When you first see the house, Goldeen relates how his grandfather used to talk about it, that first moment of seeing his grandfather in the past. Goldeen's journey, regardless of your choices, leads to your grandfather's funeral, where you can choose how you remember him, to talk about him in full or in part or not at all. In some ways, the dreamlike quality of much of the game perfectly captures that strange experience of surreality that can come with the period of time after a close family member has passed away. Every moment of happiness is tinged by that pain. Sometimes you can get away with a solitary moment of distraction from it, but eventually you have to come crashing back down into the harsh world of reality and deal with the present. Even your oldest memories can be corrupted by the present. When you find Goldeen's old hideout, Goldeen speaks of the passing of his parents and remembers
Meu zop vegl, gise nots hai passentau in cheu, durant il temps che ho tirtat, santa la mort de mes geniturs. E ha passentau gise la leunga per inflar ils drets crabs. Sil meins aschia sai eu schara viver els.
This blissful moment of memory is interrupted by the presence of his grandfather's murderer, an embodiment of his current pain.
time drifts weirdly around you, the past bleeding into the here and now, as Goldeen processes complex emotions he has towards his grandfather, and learns that his grandfather, the man he looked up to growing up, was no saint. You only see your grandfather in memories and images because even though Florine is gone, Goldeen, and by extension you, can feel his presence in all of the little ghosts he left behind. Originally, the script ended there, but I want to take a moment more to talk about the ghosts we leave behind. My grandpa was a pioneer in AI. He was witty and a phenomenal storyteller. I see my grandfather's ghost in the actions of those he taught and worked with. Because when someone dies, they're not really gone. They leave little ghosts. And sometimes those ghosts are the part of you they influenced. Sometimes there's the stories we tell. And sometimes they're in spaces. Have you ever walked into the house of someone who's passed away recently? And it feels like they should just walk out of a side room. They should just be there. Their stuff's still there. Their presence. But they can't be. Mundaun perfectly captured that feeling. And I think to some degree that's why I love it. The house sequence in the first section felt very much like walking to my grandparents' place for the first time after he passed away. You can feel their presence in the space, even though they can't inhabit it anymore. Little ghosts in picture frames and items left behind, and that empty spot where their laughter should be. The game also shows how we can learn a lot about someone after they die, and that people aren't perfect, and they shouldn't be edified in death, but remembered for everything they were. My grandpa wasn't perfect, but I loved him not in spite of that, but for everything he was. Silly flaws included. A few years ago, my dad called his parents on speaker to talk to his mom. She didn't answer, but a little ghost did. My grandma hadn't changed the answering machine since my grandpa passed away. Hearing his voice like that was a cannon to the chest. If, in some miracle, some ethereal you can see this, I hope you're proud of me. I miss you a lot. I'm sad that I didn't get the chance to come out to you. There wasn't enough time. I'm sorry you can't be here to see me become myself.
I in the valley of the ones who are gone, Curtain would dance with his ghosts, the ones he had lost and the ones he had found, and the ones who'd loved him the most, the ones who'd been gone for so very long. He couldn't remember their names. They spun him around on the damp old stones, spun away all his sorrow and pain. And he never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave, never wanted to leave. Never wanted to leave.